search for that process. It'll let you know, usually in one of the top few links, if it's a malicious process or not. And once you have narrowed it down, you can end the process and hopefully find the file or folder where everything is stored on your computer. Sometimes that's going to be tricky because it's going to have its hooks into your computer pretty deep, and it could screw with your registry. Typically, we don't recommend messing with the registry because it is complicated and it can screw up your computer pretty good if you do something wrong. So do that as a last resort. If none of that works, your best bet is just going to either take it to a PC shop or a friend that knows how to remove viruses pretty well, or you can reformat your computer. On that note, you should always back up your important files because if you reformat, you're going to lose everything, obviously, and it'll start from scratch, and that will for sure get rid of the virus.
One thing you might want to, well, you should be doing, as soon as you find out that you do get a virus, pull that Cat5 cable out, Ethernet cable, or flip your switch off. So if you're in the process of scanning for a virus, it takes an hour. That's an hour you could be transmitting, 3 million packets on the internet and
committing felonies.
Yeah. And you could be buying medication for Flavius. So particular area that I worked at, we had someone get a virus like that, and they didn't pull that cord or flip that Wi-Fi switch, and someone lost about $250,000 that way within 20-30 minutes. I don't think you want to lose $250,000. So the best thing to do is just pull that, because you don't know what you could be sending. They could be taking a snapshot of your computer, any files, they could do God knows what. So,
also as a side note, viruses can be in the backup files. Just putting that out there so you can make sure to scan those as well. And also, when you were talking about reformatting, sometimes if a virus is bad enough, it can actually get to infecting the hardware on your motherboard, so it'll reside in the BIOS or on the circuit to where it's pretty much like really, really nasty, but those are a little less common than most. But there's still ways
for a small partition and hide in it.
Yeah, there's ways for it to get around, so when in doubt, just be safe about it, because viruses have gotten incredibly cool and complex nowadays. They're well engineered. Strutnex is a good one to look into if you want to see some designed by the supposedly USA and Israel to target Iran. Strutnex is like the Mona Lisa of viruses and malware, if you care about this stuff. Stuxnet, S-T-U-X-N-E-T, Stuxnet, spelling bee. But that one is really incredibly powerful malware, if malware interests you, which I think it's pretty awesome. As like nukes are, but they're not.
Have any of you guys ever deliberately removed all your virus checkers and all your firewalls and just let your machine fly as fast as it can? What would be the point of that, George?
What's the purpose?
Speed. Because you don't care. You're going to reformat your hard drive anyway. Let it go. Let it ride, right?
Kazi XP.
That's still my theory.
I mean, how many times does CTO re-image systems? It's the best virus protection you ever had.
Every semester.
Because you have to, because it's not worth the time. Even if you could research and find out the answer, it's faster to just reformat everything and reinstall everything. And nobody's mentioned don't go to porn sites. Don't go places you shouldn't. Don't click on stuff you shouldn't click on. I mean, have a separate machine for whatever things you do.
Definitely kind of going on that note, like what are some things that we should watch out for when browsing the web, especially in public? And there's things like DNS, whatever.
DNS spoofing?
Yeah. Can you explain a little more on that, Arnold?
DNS spoofing is a common hack attack. It's done on a lot of websites that don't have protection on their servers, so there's nothing that you can do to protect yourself from it. Basically what it does is they inject malicious code into a domain name server, which redirects, let's say, Google's website to a Google sham website. And that website could then collect information from you, look at your cookies, you might fill out a password form there where they're going to record it, and you're never going to notice. And eventually, after some time, your email account or some type of account will get hacked, and you will lose some sensitive data. So best way to avoid that, browse good websites. Stay away from sketchy sites and do not click pop-ups.
If it says you won $10,000, you probably did.
It says to update Flash Player and it kind of looks sketchy and doesn't look like Adobe's website. It's probably not.
Can one of you please explain what Wireshark is, and does that affect your browsing habit when you're in public?
Yeah, I can take that one. Show of hands, who's ever heard about Wireshark or used the packet sniffer before?
Hopefully everyone in CIT 247.
Yeah, way to go. So Wireshark is basically a program that you can download for free, and what it'll let you do is kind of see all the packets that go across the network that, within reason, you have access to. So how this pertains to being safe in public Wi-Fi is, I would just flat out tell you don't use public Wi-Fi unless you have to. If it's the last option, okay, we'll talk about it, but otherwise you can probably tether your phone or find another way, just because it's kind of like the community pool. It's just like, it's not very safe, and for this reason. For example, anybody that uses like Starbucks Wi-Fi or anything, there's really nothing you can do to stop somebody from popping open Wireshark and seeing packets that go across the network. If that happens and you are on public Wi-Fi, do not enter your password or log into any account unless you absolutely have to. A little while ago I would have told you, look for the little HTTPS to make sure that it's telling that you're using SSL and that the website you're communicating with is secure. But nowadays that's even kind of up in the air. There's tools for stripping SSL out of connections. There's HTTP proxies that bypass all that kind of stuff. So nowadays, it's just to be paranoid. Don't log in. Check Facebook from your phone. I assume we all have smartphones. If you're going to do it, just use it to browse. And if you have to absolutely log in, that's kind of a risk you have to take. If you don't see HTTPS, don't even consider it. And if you want to be safe, if for example you have a job where you work from the same coffee shop every day, it's kind of your thing, I would recommend looking into a VPN. Just shell out like a few bucks that it costs a month. You can use a free VPN, which is a virtual private network. You're basically paying to use someone else's computer remotely to get to your stuff as like a man in the middle. Some of the free ones are a little more, are a lot slower, not as many features, but if you pay for a VPN, you can browse a lot quicker, and that's a lot safer to use public Wi-Fi because it's not actually you that might catch the receiving end of the traffic. Your connection to the VPN is mostly a lot more secure, so that's a better, safer way to go about it. But that's a little more extreme if you're willing to pay for a service to keep you safe on public Wi-Fi. But bottom line, I wouldn't use it.
So does VPN encrypt your data when it's going to the internet, or how does the VPN process work?
We can have a whole class about this, but it depends. I just want to kind of mention that there's a website out there that I kind of like. It's called Torrent Freak. They have a bunch of news about like the Pirate Bay and torrents and all that stuff in general. Every year they have a list of the best VPN services that take your anonymity seriously. Once again, the website is called Torrent Freak. I'm going to throw the link up on CyberOU. But that list is usually the most reliable list of the best VPN providers. They go around and interview the CEOs and the CIOs of these VPN services and ask them questions like, do you collect any logs? Do you ever hand over information to government agencies? And you can kind of see what their policy is. You want to go with a VPN that doesn't keep logs. You don't want to be tracked. And if you're using a VPN, that means you have something that you want to protect. As far as the connection and the technical details, well, to keep it simple, it depends. Different VPNs have different methods of authentication and communication. The more popular one is IPsec, I believe. Without getting too specific here, your connection to a VPN is pretty secure. But nowadays, with like the latest revelations of how the NSA, gets its groove on, no one's secure, and they broke SSL and pretty much everything out there. So we're all,
Well, Flavors, thank you for mentioning the NSA. I know this is a very hot topic. Just want to have you guys thought on what you think about the prison program. Does it affect the way that we browse? Should we get a private email posting at home to avoid all this? So what's the deal on that?
it's not cool.
Do you guys all know what PRISM is?
Joe Hammond, real quick.
We're going to take polls.
PRISM. I
Not
printed-
prison.
I printed it out. It's a government code name for a project that basically makes legal requests of big ISPs, big companies that control internet traffic, like Google, for example. There's a secret court that doesn't have, it only has lawyers for one side. And they say, hey, we need this information. And the court always says yes. They've never said no. And the companies like Microsoft, Google, Facebook have been made, thousands of requests have been made by this court, and actually the NSA through the court, and they're being, there's a suit on now to try to prevent from having to do this. There's a saying, absolute power corrupts absolutely. Absolute secrecy might corrupt absolutely, because that's really what's going on. Anyway, so the PRISM program is basically a way for the government to get the information that it needs to keep the country secure. The idea is, and it was all started in 2007 under the Patriot Act and subsequent acts to keep us safe. But it didn't stop even though the guys that committed the crime were on websites for, like, terrorism, that didn't stop the Boston Marathon bombing. They were warned, but they didn't do anything about it. So it's a weird thing. I think it'll probably come to an end, or it'll go back underground. It's a secret program.
Under the radar.
It needs to be, but I think a deeper problem that goes along the lines of PRISM is just every company protects itself by saying, your information, we want to protect it, but it's not protected. Let me read you from the Oakland University's web privacy statement that I printed out this morning. 3 sentences. At Oakland University, we strive to respect the privacy of our website visitors because your privacy is important to us. Sounds good. Information gathered. Websites you visit may gather information about you. Well, it's not by itself, that thing. The university may release your personal information to third parties.
Seems like there's a disconnect there.
Well, I mean, I don't think this is unique to Oakland University. This is something that every organization does. Basically, we want to protect your privacy, or at least we want you to think we do, but we might release information, and if we do, it's not our fault.
All right, so how can we truly stay anonymous then? Can we ever, other than go live in a jungle somewhere?
I'll tell you, what Flavius was talking about with the random number generator being hackable, so that these VPNs and SSH and everything that depends on these random number generators, those things are all hackable. It really puts into question whether or not we can. The entire crypto system that we have depends on a trusted third party. If you can't trust the third party, whether it's because you can't trust the people running it, or you can't trust the math that it depends on, either way, I think there's a serious question whether or not we can protect our information if it's out on the internet.
It's possible to stay anonymous, but it's not easy. You have to go through certain steps to ensure it, and really every step of the way kind of chips a little percentage of your identity away. So you do step 1 through 8, and now you're about like 90% secured, but it's really hard to be completely anonymous. Some of the simple ways, I'll start at like a simple level to kind of retain your anonymity if you're not like super paranoid, or if you're not like doing stuff you shouldn't be. Facebook is terrible when it comes to privacy. Facebook will track you when you're not on Facebook. Facebook is incredibly good at retaining data about its users. So there's a plugin for a few browsers I know, I believe it's called Facebook Disconnect, that blocks the little Facebook buttons you see all over the web. Websites will embed these buttons into their pages, so you can share a link share their content onto your Facebook page, but some of that information always makes its way back. So when you're browsing the web, you should probably keep Facebook and other social sites, it's not just Facebook, but that's the big one, from tracking you if you don't want that to happen. Also, not using your real name, kind of obvious, but you always have to say it because there's people out there that use their real name for everything. It's a good way to stay anonymous. Now, on the more technical side of things, there's how many of you have heard of Tor, the onion routing? Okay, that could be used. It's a little bit difficult to set up. I'll admit, even for me, it was kind of like a little bit of a process. It was a good learning experience, but there's better ways to do it. There's 2 distributions that I want to mention. One of them is Tails, Tails. It stands for the Amnesiac Incognito Live System, and it was developed, I believe, by the people that run Tor. And it's a live CD, meaning you can burn into a CD or DVD, put it in any computer, even on one's public library, whatever. And if they'll allow you to boot to a CD, it'll bring up its own environment, its own operating system. Nothing is left behind on the system, so whatever you do, when you turn off the computer or pop the CD out, it disappears. And that routes all information through Tor. So everything you do on that operating system gets encrypted and secured, and that's a pretty good way to keep your anonymity. Another one is Liberté Linux. It's developed by some really, really serious paranoid tinfoil hat people, but they're awesome. That stuff is like weapons grade uranium security. Like, that is the stuff that people, that I believe journalists and other VIPs would use in a nation that actively monitors connections such as Iran and China. That one's some heavy duty stuff. Once again, it's Liberté Linux. It's like the Hispanic Liberté. It has a little tilde on the end, but you can Google it and it'll come up. I've used that before, and it's also a live CD. That's the heavy duty side of staying anonymous. But other than that, don't underestimate the power of plugins for your browser extensions. Chrome extensions, Firefox extensions, some of the more popular ones will help you stay anonymous by disconnecting you from all these sites that track you and kind of help protect you a bit. So look into them a bit, and don't be afraid to be a little proactive with your identity.
Another quick note on Facebook. If you guys leave Facebook open in a tab, and then open up a bunch of other tabs, it does have the ability to monitor everything that you're doing in the open browser. So if you're going to use Facebook, use it by itself, and close it.
Alright, Flavors, you mentioned a lot about tools. So, what are some best hacking tools? Since we're here to learn how to hack a computer and how to defend ourselves, so.
Best hacking tools are the ones you write yourself. I'll start off with that. There's a bunch of tools out there. It's a lot easier nowadays. Back in the old days, you kind of had to write your own tools or learn how to use tools that were strictly command line only. Nowadays, there's a lot of GUI and graphical options for you to just point and click and destroy if you really wanted to. As far as the best individual tools, my personal favorite is the Metasploit framework. We'll probably cover that in some of our other talks.
Can you briefly explain what Metasploit is?
Yeah, for those of you that don't know, Metasploit framework is a framework that makes hacking very, very simple. They do it for security professionals that have to test machines routinely, and just kind of automates the process for them. So typically you scan a computer, you see what's open, you see what's vulnerable, you see what isn't secured. For example, if you scan someone's house and see that one window is kind of behind a tree and no one can see it from the street, that's kind of how a computer is seen. It has some sort of vulnerability. Once you figure out that vulnerability, you just go in Metasploit and you pick your payload. It's kind of like picking your weapon from an arsenal, saying, all right, I want to use this payload to target this machine. You set, I want to target this IP with this payload, these parameters, it's all configurable, and then you press go and it just does the hack for you. It's very sleek, open source, except for their paid version, Metasploit Pro, but it's very widely used. A lot of people contribute to it, and as soon as a new vulnerability is discovered, say for example someone's like, oh wow, I just learned you can pretty much brute force your way into Mac or any operating system, they can just develop a Metasploit payload, upload it, and everyone now has access to that particular vulnerability to use up until they patch it. So that's my personal favorite, and that's Metasploit framework is contained within an entire operating system dedicated to hacking called Kali Linux, KLI Linux. We use that extensively. I've been using it for a while. I'm sure we all have experience with it here. And it's an operating system, a custom-built version of Linux dedicated to hacking, penetration testing, information gathering. It's kind of like clicking the start menu and picking what exploit or what hack you want to follow through. Although most of them are command lines, so you won't have to know your way around Linux. It's not a very user-friendly. It is, but it still has quite a bit of a learning curve. I wouldn't use it as your first Linux operating system, but that's definitely the one-stop shop for other hacking tools, in my opinion.
One of the most common things that it's actually in Kali Linux is called Nmap. Has anyone heard of that before? Basically what Nmap is it uses raw IP packets and it shoots them out, and you can scan large networks or even single hosts, and it tells you a bunch of different things about the who you're sending it to. It tells you what hosts are available, it tells you what services they're running, what operating system they're running, what kind of packet filters or firewalls they have, and other things in addition to that. Typically when someone's hacking, that's one of the first things that they use, because it tells them what's available for them to hack. Another thing that is pretty common is called John the Ripper, which is, I believe that's Kali Linux's password cracking, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And we'll actually
It's
be
one of
playing
them.
with that next week
Yeah.
to crack passwords. So.
HashCat is another really good one.
Okay. John the Ripper is a password cracking tool that's available on 11 different types of Linux, or I should say Unix.
Distros.
Yeah. It's also available on DOS, Win32, BOS, and OpenVMS, if you run any of those. Primarily it's used to detect weak passwords in Unix operating systems. Anything that's in a dictionary is pretty easy to crack. We've done one of our meetings before we used this, and if you use a basic word, it cracks it pretty fast. So it's got two different methods that it uses. A dictionary method, it's called dictionary attack, which is it's a large file that has a bunch of different words, basically a dictionary, that it compares the hashes from those words compared to the hash of the password you're trying to crack, and that's how it finds the password in that method. The second method is the brute force method, which goes through all the possible plain texts, hashes each one, and compares it to the input hash. And it uses character frequency tables to try plain text containing more frequently used characters. So letters like A, stuff like that, it's going to crack pretty lowercase a pretty fast. It's useful for cracking passwords that aren't in a dictionary, ones that are random characters. It takes a really long time to use, though. If you have any type of secure password, it's going to take quite a while. So brute force method is not usually the method to use because it'll take forever. And that's pretty much all I got to talk about.
I got one for you. When you want to hack something, what do you want to hack? What do you want to do? If you had to hack something right now, wouldn't you want to just be able to break into somebody's computer and start using it? I mean, yeah, it'd be great if you could log into their account, and then you'd have a little bit of work to do. But I like SamCracker. We teach that. Put a CD in, type in what you got to type in, and you're in any machine.
There's a limitation with that.
Yeah, but I mean, it gets you to a lot of
Windows
99%.
XP, I don't know if that works with Windows 7 because I believe it does
It absolutely works.
MTLM
It
hash.
works with S7, I can tell you.
So, okay, well, I know they've hashed it and they've done some work on it to prevent it because it's just way too easy to bypass the Windows login. I believe they use a different hashing technique and they made modifications to the SAM file in the way that it's. I think what it is they locked access to the SAM file so that you can't access it unless certain conditions are met. I'll have to look into that. But
SamCracker is like a jackknife. Nmap is like a Swiss Army knife. And Metasploit is like a whole toolbox. That's really how I break it down. But if I had to only have one, if I was on a desert island and I only had one hacking tool, it would be SamCracker.
And for those of you that doesn't know what SamCracker is, it's pretty much crack a Windows password.
it'll let you basically wipe the password to log into your Windows machine. That's why I suggest a mathematical full disk encryption. That's going to help you if anyone gets your computer and either tries to crack your password to log into your Windows machine so they can just access all those files that are encrypted. It'll protect you against that, and it also allows you to pretty much wipe it clean so that you don't even have a password anymore. And it is incredibly easy to do. It is like not even funny. It's like 4 commands, I think, pressing option 1, 3, 4, and 1, and you're done. So you guys know, it's not, hacking has gotten a lot easier.
And RJ, I think you played with the tool called Pineapple before. Can you?
I don't think.
Well, yeah, you heard about it, but
Pineapple Gate.
So, was
this is not edible pineapple, by the way.
just out of curiosity, who was here last year? Just going to school here. You have to be honest. So,
Story time.
yeah, story time.
Should we
So-
do the
No. So there's a little device that a few individuals decided to use last year for a particular project. So what they did is they went to the OC, and it's about yay big by yay wide, and like yay tall. It's a lot of yays. And there's a power over Ethernet cord that goes from that device to a laptop, and then you plug that into the wall. Now, some booths at the OC have an outlet under them, so somebody could potentially sit at the OC in a booth, have their laptop open, have that sitting next to them. You wouldn't see a thing. Or they could sit at a round table and have 50 million cords sitting everywhere. But what that does is there's firmware inside of that Pineapple that acts as kind of like a man in the middle. Who knows what a man in the middle is? Raise your hand. Awesome. So what this did is it broadcast the signal and said, let's say Tom wants to connect to GrizzNet, and he wants to go on Facebook and check out his ex-girlfriend yelling at him for going to this party. He's like, man, I'm gonna get her. So he goes and logs in. He's like, man, I'm not on the internet. Connect to GrizzNet. The Pineapple's sending out a signal and saying, no, I'm GrizzNet. Come on my connection. And he can't tell the difference because with that device, you name it, and then that name processes as an SSID. So when you see available networks, you see GrizzNet. And, I just named it GrizzNet for whatever. And connect to that GrizzNet, you just connect to that individual's Pineapple. And that laptop and that Pineapple have a signal coming in from the real GrizzNet, and they're redirecting traffic. So what they do is any incoming traffic that decides to connect to that GrizzNet Pineapple device, they get to do whatever they want to it. Now, a lot of devices automatically connect to the most, available nearby network. So if you're close, and if somebody's sitting at the OC, that's going to be physically closer than hitting a server in Dodge or a server in Varner. So you're going to automatically select that to connect to. So people connected to that, and people got redirected places. People had Facebook tricks played on them, and things happened, but nothing malicious was done. But the point is that can happen. This is a public Wi-Fi. If you go to Starbucks, you go to an airport, one of the big videos that actually went over this device was at an airport. This guy sat at the airport, ran this thing, and he got, I think it was literally 1,000 people connected at once. And he had such a powerful PC that he just ran logs of everything. He had Facebook passwords, bank account passwords, you name it, he had it. And nobody knew anything.
So it's pretty much a Wireshark on steroids then? would you say?
It's close, but it's like Wireshark is Ronnie from Jersey Shore.
I don't watch Jersey Shore.
Situation better.
It is a situation waiting to happen. So the moral of the story, public Wi-Fi, I want to throw a pie at your face. Don't use
Told
it.
you.
Yeah. But I mean, if you're going to leave the room, nobody's going to care. They're going to go on to public Wi-Fi. It's going to happen. Just be careful. Yeah. I'm on Wi-Fi right now. But just be careful, because things like that can happen.
Yeah, the Pineapple Gate scandals when a student, not mentioning any names here, decided that for his project for the security class was going to use the Pineapple in the OC. And that wasn't supposed to happen because the White Hat agreement that we all signed in the class said we can't use it in public, we have to do everything in a safe environment, and the person was caught with antennas everywhere. There was no attempt to hide it. It was kind of funny almost, and it was a lot of trouble for them. OU came down pretty hard, and moral of the story is be smart, don't be an idiot.
And we'll definitely go through, we actually have a couple labs here on campus, DHE 205, and there's one here in Elliott Hill, correct? and those are actually designated for any sandbox environment that you want to do. So if you have anything that you want to test out, please come to us and then we will try to set you up. So moral of the story is don't do anything that's outside of, you don't have permission to, or you're not in an isolated network environment, or else you could get into very serious trouble, for sure.
The guy he's a good guy though.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
He made a natural mistake, and he's one of us. If we see him again, he's a buddy of ours. I mean, there's no problem. Anyone can make a mistake. You know, we don't want to dump on anybody just because they did something like that. But we definitely want to follow policy. And Oakland University handled it correctly. They handled it. They came down on it, right?
They handled it appropriately, I think.
Handled it appropriately. So it was a tough situation.
Just a matter
learning
of
experience for all.
common sense. You can't do stuff like that on real people.
Yeah,
You
shouldn't
can.
dump on
We have environments that you can test on and do whatever you want, but it gets really bad when there's other parties involved, especially without their consent. No one wants you to be. I don't think many of you would agree to be someone's project unwillingly, or have your information put out there as part of their project. So when it comes to security-related stuff, just make sure you don't affect anybody else that's not directly involved or that you get their consent for.
Definitely. And I guess last thing that we're gonna talk about is lately there has been a lot of hacks that has been very well known, such as I believe the New York Times got hacked lately, recently.
Free CNR.
So what are you guys thought on what's the most talked about hacks? Like I know Kevin Mitnick. How many know who Kevin Mitnick is? He did some pretty amazing hacks. So I was wondering, what are some hacks that you guys know that is very impressive or very well talked about?
Stuxnet's the one that automatically comes to mind. Whenever somebody says hack, I think Stuxnet.
Here, here. As of today, Vodafone Germany got 2 million customers' bank accounts stolen. Just a few hours ago, they got hacked, and about 2 million names, addresses, and bank account numbers and dates of birth have been stolen. That's a pretty big one. Kind of terrible. And another popular one that I know was talked about quite a bit at DEF CON, and this is kind of something right up George's alley, is car hacking, where with the right means, it's not incredibly popular. It's not like you have to go put a firewall on your car just yet. But just as proof of concept is some guys took a Prius and a Ford Fusion, I believe, and with a laptop they were able to drive it, command the brakes, make it turn, do all this stuff. And it's getting even more popular now without even having to physically connect to the car. Some high-end luxury vehicles, BMWs, Audis, and I think like exotic cars, you can actually crack into them and unlock them from the outside, because normally they have their key fob, or they have like a proximity sensor. When the owner and the keys walk close enough, they'll automatically open. Hackers have figured out how to unlock those. So some Russian gang members have been going around stealing high-end cars. It's being passed around in the black market. So even your car's not safe anymore. It's a pretty big one that came on DEF CON recently. DEF CON 21, I think, was big talk about that.
I'd like to mention just two hacks. This